Good afternoon, students. So, in our previous Zoom class, we were continuing with chapter number 9. So, today also we'll continue with this chapter 9, and today we'll go with the topic health, nutrition, and well-being of school-going children. School-age children. So, in previous topic we have covered the health, nutrition, and well-being of the preschooler children, and now the age group is school-age children. So these children belong to the age group of 7 to 12 years. Now, school-age children too, as like the preschool children, are extremely active physically. With the incidence of communicable diseases out of the way, the child is now quite strong. You may notice that the growth pattern is rather slow now. Instead, body changes occur gradually, especially from 9 to 10 years onwards, when the boys and girls show different growth patterns. So, as the growth patterns changes, so with that growth patterns, so different kinds of bodily changes also occurs to these children, and their growth pattern is rather slow rather than that of the preschooler children. So now, what are the nutritional requirements of the school children? So, as it is said here that though it is a latent period of growth, there are several activities to pack in the child's day now. Retaining his or her energy is therefore very crucial. Nutritional requirements are the same for both boys and girls up to the age of 9 years, after which there is a change in some of the nutritional requirements for the boys and girls. So now let's see what are the recommended dietary allowances for the school age children or the school going children. So now the recommended dietary allowances, as I have told you earlier, that the recommended dietary allowances means the RDA. So it is recommended by the ICMR, that is Indian Council of Medical Research. So now in this column, as you can see, in the first column it is given the nutrients, the different nutrients are given there, and in the second column, which is divided into two parts, the one part is the age group of 7 to 9, in which there is no differentiation between the boys and the girls. So the requirements of those children of 7 to 9 years are same. So that's why the single column is made. And on the second one of the age group is 10 to 12 years. So 10 as I told you that after 10 years the requirements for the boys and the girls changes. So for that reason, the 10 to 12 years of this column is divided into two parts. Number one is boys and girls. So according to the nutrients like energy, protein, calcium, iron, vitamin A, and all the B complex vitamins, minerals, according to these nutrients, the different requirements are already given in that column of the age. You can see. So go through these requirements, because these are very important for the preschoolers also, and for these school age children also, because any kind of requirement can come in your exam, or the whole thing can also come in your exam. So in that case you have to memorize these requirements. So the importance of the macronutrients like energy, protein, fat, calcium are very important, and also some of the important micronutrients are vitamin A, iron, vitamin B12, niacin. So you have to know these values. Now, planning diets for school age children. Now, how the diet patterns, or what kind of diets should be planned for these school age children? Let's see. So, following all aspects and guidelines of the diet planning for preschool children, it may appear that by school age the children establish a particular pattern of food intake. To an extent you are right, but planning balanced meal for school children may differ in other aspects also. So let us discuss this briefly. So the number one aspect which is very important is aim for variety. So as for the preschoolers also, the variety was very important part in this school age children's also. Variety should be there. So we know that no single food can provide all the nutrients in the amount the children or the child needs every day. So the most consistent nutrition message therefore is to eat a variety of foods. Variety also increases like childhood of accepting new foods. So if the child if the child at the time of the preschool age adjusts with this variety of food, so then it would be easy for that child to bear with this variety in his or her school age this period. So ensuring good nutrition. So we know that children at this age need more protein, calcium, iron, iodine. So these are the very important nutrients which are required in a huge amount for these school age children. So they must be encouraged to eat vegetables, fruits, whole grains. So somehow the tiffin for the children in school, or when the child is going to the school, before going to school or after coming from school, the diet should be maintained with these vegetables, fruits and whole grains. It should be included in the diet. So these improve the macronutrient density in their diets and reduces the risk of diseases like cardiovascular and diabetes. So cardiovascular diseases and diabetes is nowadays it is growing so badly because the child, they don't get involved in playing or any extracurricular activities for that reason. So they are being targeted by this disease at the very starting period of their life. So these things should be the tiffin or their breakfast or their meal should be including good nutrition to ensure that they get away from these kind of diseases. So now number 3 is the limit intake of saturated fat, salt and sugar. So you know that the growth of these school children has now slowed down, maintaining calories from fat to 20% of the total calories. Diets rich in fats and sugars increases the risk of obesity and its related problems. So foods with added sugars are also a cause of dental caries. High sodium intake may increase blood pressure, leading to major risk factors of stroke, kidney and coronary diseases. So this planning diet for not only school age children but also for the preschool children go through this very minutely, because each and every single line is very important. As you can see, the different lines in this limit intake of the saturated fat and salt and sugar, these are very important lines, and fill in the blanks or MCQ questions can come from this part of the chapter. Now high sodium intake may increase blood pressure, leading to major risk factors of stroke, kidney and coronary diseases. So if there is always a hyper reaction or a hypo reaction of any kind of nutrients which is taken by the child with the help of their meal or diet. So if there is a high sodium intake, so these risks or these diseases may occur, like blood pressure also can increase. It may lead to the stroke related factors, or kidney can put stress in the kidneys, and coronary diseases can also occur. So the total diet should be maintained in very properly or accurately, so that they don't go with this hypo actions or the hyper actions of the different minerals or the foods. So planning of the diet is a very important part. Now the next one is ensure eating breakfast. Breakfast is a special meal. It should contain more of the protein and energy. So protein, as the protein and energy is other macronutrients which are very important for the daily life work to do. So for the children, since they are busy in school, like with playing or in different activities, so the energy requirements is also increased at that time. So because of that, they should be having a heavy breakfast in their home, and then they should be out for the school. Now involve children in a meal planning. So as children grow older, they can be involved in planning their meals. It will make healthy eating interesting for them. So as the child grows up, so involvement, the parents should involve the child itself in making the meal planning, or rather making their own meal. So they should, so that they can suggest that, no, I'll eat that, I'll eat this, I'll not eat this, I'll not eat that, or I can eat this with the combination of that. That will be very interesting. So these things should be the child should be accustomed with this kind of practices by the parents. So these are the different aspects. Go through these aspects. Now, in this table, as you can see, the balanced diet for school going children by ICMR 2010. So this is basically a balanced diet which is given by the ICMR. In this table you can see the different food groups are given and the quantities is also given, and it is mentioned that for which age group the different quantities should be maintained. So for 7 to 9 years of age of the children, they should be having these quantities which is given here, and for 10 to 12 years for the boys and girls specifically, they should be consuming this amount or this quantity of the different food groups. So now in the food groups, it is given like cereals and millets, pulses and legumes, milk and products, fruits and vegetables, roots and tubers, green leafy vegetables, other vegetables, fruits, and in the fifth one is the sugars and fats. So these are the 5 food groups which are given, and according to that the quantities is also given there. So go through this as if there is a question like give a balanced diet for the school going children, then we have to show this column. Now in the next part of this, it is given I think this is an example of a whole day menu for school age children. Now in the breakfast, it is given milk and cornflakes, rava upma, and an apple or any seasonal fruit. So the breakfast, the breakfast includes, these are the food materials which the breakfast should be including for the school age children. Now school tiffin should be grilled sandwich with egg fillings for their daughter, but paneer filling for the son. So this is just because I don't know why the 2 menus were kept for the girls and the boys, because the girls also can have those and the boys also can have the girls one. So there is no problem with that, but it is said that who is allergic to egg. Okay, so the son, if he is allergic to egg, then only paneer can be given. Otherwise, if there is no allergic symptoms, then the egg can be given to the son, and fruit should be there. So now, and this is not like that the school tiffin should be only including within this. That is not that thing. But the school tiffin should be including within these 5 food groups. Okay, so it can be fortified with any kind of 2 or 3 types of foods can be mixed together, and a single menu can be given, or a single meal can be given to them. Now coming on to the lunch. In lunch, vegetable pulao, tomato rings and cucumber sticks for salad, and buttermilk. This is just an example. The lunch can be prepared according to the need, or according to the choice of the parents also. Now evening snacks, it can include boiled potato and mung sprout chaat. In dinner, Bengal gram dal or chicken curry, okra and onion vegetables, chapati and raw salad. So these are the different pattern which is given. The parents can follow these. In rural areas, the breakfast may consist of items such as upma with banana, potu, which is with chana curry or banana, idli or dosa, or appams. In the south, or parathas with buttermilk, or puri with potato preparations in north. So this is basically an example of the pattern which is to be followed for the whole day menu for the child. So this is I think for these school age children. So now we'll move on to the different factors that influence diet intake of the preschool age and school age children. Now, what are the factors that influence the diet intake of the preschool age and the school age children? So we'll discuss the factors that influence the diet intake. So the diet intake of the preschool age and the school age children is very important, as we have come to know. But what are the factors which influences these diets? Okay, so number one, it is given family environment. So put simply, the families that use positive parenting practices encourage total well-being of the children. We generally observe that with or without conscious effort, the family guides and shapes the food preferences and establishes the food patterns of their school children. The parents should therefore acquire proper nutritional knowledge and incorporate it into planning diets for the children. Eating together in a comfortable and happy atmosphere is conducive to good eating habits and nutrient intake. So family environment means the child, if the child is being with a good family environment, if the child is sitting together with the family and having the meals together, so that also influences the child towards this practice of good eating habits, because the parents can guide when the child is having their meal. So now eating together is also comfortable and happy. If there is a happy atmosphere, the child, the eating practice will also be enhanced, and also the child will bear some polite behavior also while having the meal. Now this was about the family environment, and what is the negative part of this? So if there is not proper practice of the family of eating together, so what can happen is that the child will become very irregular with his or her diet. That the child will not follow any routine, that when he'll be having his dinner, or what time will be having lunch, or who is going to pack the tiffin. Someday the tiffin can misplace or mispatch. So these things can happen if the total family environment is not good and planning is not there. So number two is media. So in this media, it is said that TV watching and suppose any kind of film or movies, or like playing game in hand, and suppose mother is the mother is helping the child to eat. So this is a very wrong pattern, because these televisions and this suppose whatever the child is watching in the television, that also influences the pattern. Influences their meal or their what to say. So it also influences the child that somehow, no, I'll not eat now that much, or no, this has happened, so I'll not eat now. So it can somehow trigger the child of with emotions or any kind of feeling. So media, this thing should not be maintained if the child is having any problem. So more exposure, more independence, and above all, more understanding of the catchy slogans tempts children of this age. Attracted by the message conveyed by commercials, they insist on foods which are low in fiber and high in sugar, fat, sodium. So media should be avoided in order to maintain the diet properly. So now let's coming to the next part, that is peers. So peers means what? As the child enters school, there is a change of dependence from parental standards to those set by the peer groups. So food intake may differ from what is followed at home due to the peer influence. So suppose peer influence means what? Suppose I have taken a tiffin which includes a very healthy or a very good nutrition a tiffin with good nutrition, rather, with all the good nutrients in it. So now I have taken my tiffin and I have gone to school, and I am sharing the tiffin with my friends, or rather when I am eating the tiffin, they have also opened their tiffin boxes, and I can see very good snacky type of foods there. But now I am seeing in my tiffin that, oh my god, what I have got in here, these are not that much of tasty according to those that my all friends are having. So now I'll come from school and I'll tell my parents that what kind of food do you give me. They take very good foods with them. So this is what we call peer influence. So when we get influenced by their wrong deeds, so we come and tell, and then if our parents make us understand that no, those are not healthy for you, so then also we quarrel with our parents that no, I'll take those only in my school, or I'm not going to school. So some days the odd tiffins are okay, but in general you have to maintain your tiffin very properly. Now the next part is the socio-cultural influence. Socio-cultural influences means every region has its typical foods and flavors. The family usually serves the same food to young children that adults eat. So now socio-cultural influences means, suppose I am staying in North Bengal and someone stays in South Bengal, or any distant places. So my food habits or my eating or my tiffin pattern will not match with them, because their pattern of eating or their pattern of the meals are not similar to me. So these things can influences the child's habit. So these are, and the last one is erratic appetite. So what is this erratic appetite? You may notice that the child may eat one meal well while refusing the next altogether. So this should not be worrying, because these are temporary moods and disappear if not reinforced by drives, punishments or rigid rules. So child may not eat one meal while refusing the next altogether. So sometimes the child refuses to take the food. So at that time the parents should be very strict with them that no, you have to eat it, you have to complete the whole food, or else you are not I'll not allow you to go outside to play. So these things are the examples. The parents also sometimes they need to be very strict with the children, because they have got this this kind of nature of doing this kind of thing. That is not their wrong thing, but this happens at this age period. So this should not be worrying, because these are temporary moods and disappear if not reinforced by the drives. So this doesn't disappear, because if the parents doesn't make their child understand, or rather sometimes punishment is also needed. So if they don't do these things, so these things stays for a longer period of time, so doesn't disappear. So these are very important to get rid of this erratic appetite. So these are the different things. So today's class will be this, up to this only, and a little bit of this chapter is left that I'm going to complete in the next Zoom class only. Okay, so thank you.